So folks, listen, what we're going to do now, we're going to crack on with the guest panel discussion. This is going to consist of a variety of different questions from myself to our guests. Once that part is over, we are then going to open the floor to questions from yourselves. So hopefully from the talks that you've had already, it's fired you up to think about a few things. Do feel free to ask the questions to our spectacular guest of panellists who have a wealth of experience in the sales industry. So so do not miss the opportunity. Take the opportunity today and ask the question that you've been thinking about for so long, okay? Guys, this is going to be off mute. We have one microphone to share between us, okay? And I am now going to take a seat. So, folks, as I've said before and I'll say again, thank you very much for coming along to this event. We have 4 fantastic guest panellists today. And Noel, thank you very much for rushing over. I appreciate that. So, listen, I'm going to crack on, and I'd like to each of you take 2 minutes now to tell me a little bit about how you got into the sales industry. Noel, you have the mic, so if you want to crack on first.
Okay. I spent my first 17 years in a civil service career in procurement, procuring ICT systems. And the last project that I ran was the outsourcing of the Central Information Systems Division of the Department of Finance in 1991. Which created a company in Northern Ireland called CFM Group Limited, which then became ICL CFM, which is now Fujitsu. So in 1991, we outsourced 142 civil servants to create a new company in Belfast, which was a mainframe-based company. Up until then, I was in procurement, but because I had negotiated the contract and negotiated the transfer of the staff into the private sector, the new company offered me the job as business development director, and I'd never been a salesperson up until that point. So what age was I then? God, 17. I was 34. So that started my sales career overnight. And I realised the first day I walked into it, I realised I should have been in it for the first 17 years, because I knew sales was what I loved doing as soon as I started doing it. And I've been a sales and marketing director, CEO and MD since then, and 15 years ago I started my own company, helping other companies build their sales and marketing teams, and I specialise in public sector tenders. And I'm sorry for being late, but I just got off a plane from Lanzarote about an hour ago, and I had to get home, get changed and get back out again. So, but it's great to see such a turnout, and from my point of view, it's great to see so many younger people getting involved in the sales career. Because for me, sales is a profession. It's not a job. You have to, if you're going to get into sales, be a professional, be a proper sales professional. Just don't do a sales job, because that doesn't do it its honour. If you're a sales professional, you'll make a lot of money and you'll have a really great career. I guarantee you that. All right.
Perfect. If you want to pass over to Rosemary, we'll go down that way.
Rosemary. Good evening, everybody. I don't think I've ever been called spectacular before, but I'm going to take that. First of all, for people who don't know who I am in training and business consultancy, and I have been for the last 17 years. So I'm delighted to say there's a few of my clients here this evening, so I'm really pleased to see you here. And I'm going to admit straight away, I'm a big fat fraud. I shouldn't be sitting here at all, because I actually don't think I'm a salesperson. What I am is a marketer, and I think, to me, the secret of being good in sales and learning, you do need to learn professional skills, but it's also to know about your market. And I know people have alluded to, talk to the right people, be interested in the right people, and I think that's probably the angle that I'm going to be coming from tonight. You do need to learn sales techniques, you do need professionalism, but you also need to very much understand who your market is, who you're talking to in the first place. So I suppose that would be the reason that I'm here. So what I do for a living is I assist small businesses to succeed, whether they're startups or growth. That's really what my ethos or vision, I suppose, is. And how did I start? Well, I did start in sales. I've sold shoes, I've sold holidays. I was in food retail, my own business, for 11 and a half years, and did some outside catering. So I have been in sales, but as I say, marketing is my baby. I like to think about marketing first, which to me leads to sales, and good professionalism obviously caps that and leads to closure. So happy to talk to anybody after the event as well. I'll be hanging around. So
thank you, Rosemary. Valerie?
Thanks very much. I've been in sales and business development really all of my career, through what I do now with Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce, which is largely around selling and managing memberships and retaining members and making sure members are getting what they need from the Chamber. And prior to that, it was in media, both print, radio and digital media. And it started in newspapers way back in the day, but in fact it started a bit before that. My father owned a chemist shop in my hometown, and neither of my siblings there wasn't a day's work in either of them, so I was roped in to help in the shop at holiday times. And on Christmas Eve at about 2:30, this influx of men in a complete panic would arrive into this chemist shop. Now, most of them were coming out of the pub next door. And I realised that I could sell them a set of Tweed and a bottle of Charlie as well. And I realised very quickly that due to their inebriation and my skills, I was able to upsell them very quickly. So I learned how to sell there. And then I went into actually a public sector civil service career for a very short time before I realised that was not for me. And then I went into sales and financial services, and then ultimately into newspapers, and then spent a long number of years in that media environment, which, if anybody has ever worked in it, and I know Glenda's here and she certainly has, and a few of my other colleagues in the Chamber have also worked in media, it's a very competitive, price-driven environment. You've got to be on your A game to sell anything to anybody. You've got to build the relationships, and it's all about delivering value and finding out what it is the customer needs. And often the customer doesn't have an awareness of what they need until we arrive in to begin the process. But it's been, Noel mentioned, it's been a tremendous career, really diverse, really rewarding. There is massive opportunity. And if you run your own business or you're a leader in a business, you are selling all the time. Regardless, you are, because everything that you do is perceived as your representation of the company and the products that you have for sale. So, thank you.
All right, last one, that kind of limits. Yeah, so I got into sales from the very start. My first job was working in a chocolate company called Baxter Murray that used to be based out in East Belfast, and I was selling personalised chocolate gifts to people. I remember them well as well. I worked for them for 3 months, run up to Christmas. We got their order book full, and they said we didn't need you anymore. So there you go. Sometimes you can be too good a salesperson. But it was an odd little company. But after that, I went into the financial services industry. So I probably spent the first 6-7 years of my career working in financial services, particularly in the insurance industry. Went up through there with Ensley Insurance. I was regional manager for Ensley in Northern Ireland, and then made the jump over to Abbey Insurance to do high net worth individuals. And then I sold my soul and went to Walmart to lead their financial services division for Northern Ireland. But my soul came back to me, and I quit that job after about 3 months. For lots of reasons I won't go into now. But after that, it was kind of, what do you do next in your career? Because at that stage, I'd done the financial service industry, done other things, what do I want to do next? So I actually tripped and fell backwards into economic development. And at that time, I was leading Invest Northern Ireland's team for inward investment in the Belfast. So going after our lovely FDI jobs that some people love and some people hate. However, that was a real privilege to represent Northern Ireland for a long time all over the world, trying to generate jobs. I mean, over the period of 10 years I was involved in that industry, we created something in the region of 15,000 jobs in Northern Ireland and did well over £700 million in export sales, which is something that, everyone sees investment as a huge team, a relatively small group of people, and some invest and I get a hard time. Some really talented individuals work really hard to deliver an awful lot. So after that, I decided then to try and spread my wings and work a bit more internationally, and I started to work with US states and Canadian states, and then after a period of time I decided to set up my own company and move into other areas. So I've been working in sales from day one. I don't think I've had a month in my professional life that I didn't have a sales target over my head. And the really depressing thing is, now that I'm self-employed, I'm still doing it to myself, which is a bit masochistic almost, but that's what it is.
So we can see here that there's a variety of different people. Some have started in the sales industry, some haven't. And you can clearly see that no matter what route you take, sales is a big part of business and indeed your life as well. So that would nicely lead me on to, we all know that sales is a big part of the job. We all know that we need to do it. But how do we do it, We all know that strategy is a big part of sales. So if we look at the last few years, what are the sort of trends that you guys have seen in terms of sales strategy happening over the last few years? What do you think the trends are?
May as well. I've got it. May as well kick off. I think there's a lot more responsibility in the sales industry now, and I think especially as was alluded to, there's a lot of young people in the room tonight who are working in the sales industry. I think there's a lot more responsibility on this. Wasn't something I'd thought of in advance, but when you mentioned it, Noel, it really rang true. There's a lot more responsibility on individuals working within sales organisations now to cover off more parts of the process, and I think that's as a result of social media, digital technology, CRM. It empowers so many people to do so much more with their time now. It's not like the old days whenever I used to get handed, that first day I remember getting handed a Yellow Pages, the yellow book thing that used to exist, and being said, just look for people who might want to buy chocolate. And that was the world, and you could only do so much work in that time. And I had very little responsibility apart from finding people to do this, and that's where it started. Now, when I look at especially junior people in teams, and it just in the mind boggles at how much responsibility the senior people have and how much stress they're under. I just see the variety. They're working on 3 different systems. They're using different technologies. They're running their social media at the same time. I just think that's the big change, is just how much more responsibility is being put on.
What do you think, Valerie? What would your reviews be on that?
Yeah, I think in terms of sales strategy for a lot of companies, it's about looking at the profitability of different product and service lines as well. A lot of companies go through many iterations of products and of services and have a suite of things that they're selling to clients. And it's very important to analyse that every now and again and have a look at, are a lot of our resources going into selling something that in actual fact is costing so much to sell that it's not particularly profitable? And if that's the case, what are we going to do about it? So I think from a strategic and a sort of a sales management point of view, it's very important that those conversations are had as well. It's true, there's a lot more responsibility. There's quite a lot of not so much legislative responsibility, but for example, in our organisation, we have lots of accreditations of different types around quality and process and so on. So we have very tight internal procedures to follow. Obviously, GDPR complicates the sales process for most of us, depending on what sort of system that you use. So there's a lot more responsibility in that sense as well on salespeople and sales managers to make sure those boxes are all being ticked correctly. But I think critically, it's about making sure that you're selling the right amount of the right thing. It is very easy to go down the rabbit hole of selling something because there's a lot of units that can be shifted, and when you look at the profitability of that particular product line, it's not as good, and that's really the busy fool syndrome. It's not a good use of time, so I think that's an important part of it too.
And Noel?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Funny enough, I think sales strategy, and I'm probably the oldest on the panel by at least a factor of 2, hasn't changed that much in all that time, and hasn't changed for centuries probably. I think people who are salespeople now are blessed with the tools that they have available to help them sell. So Sean talked there about Yellow Pages. I can remember a time when there was no Yellow Pages. Try being a salesperson when you have a phone in front of you and it's got one of them big dial things that goes 9, 6, 3, and there's only one phone in the customer building. So you get through to somebody and you say, I want to talk to such and such, and she has to leave a message or he has to leave a message, and 3 days later somebody rings you back. Whereas now, going to see a client, I can go on the web and I can know about that client almost nearly everything I need to know about the company, what they sell, what they do, and what the individual does. I can go on to LinkedIn, see what sports he likes. I can go and see what family he has. I can go on the page, Facebook. Now, you guys are probably using things that I don't use. I'm a massive LinkedIn user, but there's people who use all sorts of things. But think of that resource that you've got in order to sell. So from a sales strategy point of view, I think some of the basics haven't changed at all. One of the things that strikes me as strange when I go in to work with clients is, one of the first questions I ask them is, tell me in one sentence what you do, what you sell here. Now, they bumble on for 5 minutes and tell me all this technology stuff or what their thing does compared to the other guy. But they don't have in one sentence, what does their company do that's better than everybody else? Now, people that used to work in companies like IBM knew what that sentence was because they were trained to do it. You know, so when you bought from those guys, they told you what they sold, and that's why you bought from them, because they were so confident about how good they were. So it's understanding, I think, what you sell as part of the basis of your strategy. Then, I think, as you said, understand the market that you're operating in. Now, if you're selling in Northern Ireland, it's a completely different market from Southern Ireland. It's a massively different market from the UK. The market in Northern Ireland is dominated by the public sector. So if you're not on top of the public sector in Northern Ireland for your company, now if your company doesn't sell anything that the public sector is not interested in, then don't worry about that statement. But I'm trying to think of something the public sector is not interested in, because they are the biggest buyer in Northern Ireland. So you have to look at your market and understand your market and what you're selling into that. And then the most important part for me is understanding your customer. So understanding the company that you're selling to, but then breaking that down into the individuals inside that company and understanding what makes those individuals tick. Because it's all different types of buyers inside that company. You'll have people who'll coach you. You'll have people who'll block you. You'll have people who'll help you. And you've got to get a combination of all those people, and then work out your strategy to get in there and sell what you're selling. That takes a bit of time, but after a while, once you get in, if you're confident in what you do, then you start building those relationships, and that's where the real selling starts. You start getting repeat business. So it's, for me, strategies hasn't changed that much, but what has changed really is the tools that are available to you now to enable you to implement that strategy. I mean, it's fantastic, the social media, what you can do with it. I mean, Kenny has used social media for this event in a brilliant way. I think we'd all agree that he started from nowhere and then built it, and he's ended up, you know, I mean, there's not many people can get this many people into your room on a Thursday night and persuade me to come back from Lanzarote. You know, it's a tribute to him that he has used social media in order to build this particular market that he's interested in. So, you know, this is a good example of how he used those tools to fill this room.
Thanks for that. Rosemary, from your point of view, you know, from a marketing perspective, you know, people often forget, and you know, there's a reason why Rosemary is on this panel, because people often forget sales and marketing are identical. They're the same thing. You need to have them both. You can't have one without the other, okay? And it's essential that marketing is a part of it. I actually call it smarketing now, okay? You know, because, you know, I've actually spent a lot of my time marketing this. I've did little very selling. You know, I haven't done much. I've just been marketing. And you guys have decided to buy, okay? So there's a mix of marketing and selling in there. So
what I'm going to say is I'm going to contradict myself.
Yep.
I'm going to say to you, just as Noel said, it's an awful lot since I started selling. I mean, I was a promotions girl for Marlborough for my sins, you know, way back. I did all sorts of sales. And when I studied and I qualified in 1997 in marketing, and I remember the big buzz back then was relationship building. It hasn't changed. None of that has changed. But what has changed, and this is where I'm going to contradict myself, is it's changed in terms of the speed at which I can reach the people that are in this room if I want to reach them. Within a second, Olivia, you're going to back me up here. I met Olivia this evening, and within a second, we're linked in. I'll show you how to do that on your app if you don't already know how to do it, to QR scan each other in seconds. No need for business cards anymore. And the speed of introductions in order that your relationship build, that is really the major change that I see. I know that you're going to come on to challenges as well, Kenny, but because I work with SME, you know, small business owners, like me, and I'm a small business owner, I'm a sole trader, I've been doing this for 17 years. The difference, I suppose, for me is I'm everything. I'm operations, finance manager, relationship builder, marketer, and salesperson. So I think that you need to have all of those skills, and I think the challenge is so much more is expected of all of us, because we have got technology at our fingertips for one thing, and those targets seem to go up and up and up.
Always.
Yeah.
So we have touched on challenges. To be fair, I think we've covered the challenges question there, and I guess the challenge that we've identified here is that we have so much technology to access now. We have so many ways to get in touch with customers now. And back in the day, before I was even thought of, people were using Yellow Pages and dialing on a phone. But,
And he thinks this is hilarious,
Listen, I couldn't help it. But for me, I am this type of salesperson where I grew up in a time where technology is all I've known. LinkedIn, social media, CRMs. When I came into sales, this is all I have known. So it's how do we, as salespeople now, how do we utilise these solutions? The likes of CRM, for example, I have been in many businesses and they implement the CRM system and they think, yeah, this is going to be great. Very little training. It's not updated as often as it should be, and it's not there to manage the process, and it's actually a hindrance for some salespeople, because they're taking time out of their selling time to do the admin because management wants a report. And management should be trained on that CRM to pull that report. So the challenge here is how do you use technology to make your job easier, yeah? And that's why technology is there. Don't be fooled as well through LinkedIn. Likes don't get sales, folks. I'm going to be upfront with you. Likes do not get sales. It's your interaction after the like that's important. Are you reaching out to the people who are liking and commenting and sharing your content? Because all you're doing is marketing. That's all you're doing. If you're not following up after that, you're not going to get the sale. So I think we've covered the challenges part there very well in that part. What I want to move on now to is what makes a good sales professional? Rosemary, by all means. So I'll double this up. What makes a good salesperson, and what can people do to become better at sales?
Okay, I've had to take my notes here this evening because I was scared of getting this in the wrong order. And apologies to anyone who's ever heard this before, but this is my mantra, if you like. Anyone that's ever heard of Rudyard Kipling? He wrote a poem called The Elephant Child, and I'm not going to read you the whole poem. You'd be very glad to know. But part of it goes, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. So if you can keep that mantra close to your chest, and somebody's smiling at me over there, so they've used it. If you can keep those questions close to your chest, and you, as Declan said earlier on, you're intent on the customer and you're intent on understanding what it is the customer wants. And with the parity effect, you listen more than you talk. You're halfway there, more than halfway there, in my view. So it's my top tip is listen. Have an interest in what the customer's looking for. If you get a no, it might not be a no, never. It might be a no, not yet. And don't make sure that the door's not closed. And be professional. If somebody says no to you, be professional about it. You're going to get lots of no's, but that's okay. You're not going to get everybody to buy from you. So in terms of what makes a good salesperson, be a brilliant listener. It would be my top tip.
Okay. If you want to come up to the panel, we'll have each buddy answer that.
I think the sales professional, I'll harp on about that again. I still want you to keep calling it a profession. I regard it as a profession. I regard a salesperson who's right on top of the game as being exactly the same as a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. Those are professional qualifications. Those are professional people. What makes a professional? Well, if you go to see a consultant, my son's a surgeon. If you go to see a consultant surgeon, and he gives you advice or carries out an operation, what is it you're expecting from him? You're expecting honesty, integrity, reliability, and knowledge of a subject. Now, in terms of being a salesperson, I think we should expect the same standards. Salespeople went through a very bad time, basically when double glazing got introduced. Nobody wanted to be in the sales profession when double glazing got introduced because everybody got ripped off. I don't know whether, maybe some people not in this room, but your parents will have been ripped off by a double glazing salesperson at least once in their life. I think it's happened to me 3 times. Because they had no integrity, no honesty, no professionalism. They just sold people stuff, told them it would be cheap, told them it would be great quality, told them it would be this, told them it would be that, and got people into a huge amount of debt and sold them a pile of crap. So that wasn't professional. So I think some of the tenets that I would like to see for a sales person trying to come into the sales industry, and what I rely on in my own business is, well, if somebody come back to me later and said, Noel, that consultancy was a load of crap. We sold nothing. We got nowhere. It was a disaster. But thanks for those 7 invoices you sent me. You know, I don't think I would be terribly proud of that. If a client said to me, Noel, I wasn't happy with what you did there because the workshop didn't go well, I wouldn't charge them. I would give them their money back. Because it's not that I'm agreeing that maybe I was wrong. It's that they felt that it was wrong and that they weren't getting value for money. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever done it. I think I've done it once. Yeah. But I would do it any time anybody asked me to, if they were able to say, look, that didn't fit what you said you were going to do. Sometimes that might happen. But I think those basic tenets of honesty with people, being professional about how you present things and what you're actually selling them. The worst, I always hated it. I've had hundreds of salespeople working for me over the years, and I've had some of the most brilliant salespeople, women and men, in Northern Ireland working for me. And, you know, the really great ones were really great. The really bad ones were really bad. Now, they might have been good for a while and they were producing the numbers, but suddenly you found out why they were producing the numbers. They were selling people bad stuff, or they were giving people bad prices. So they were selling stuff way below price just to get the sale and get the commission. And it was only later when we discovered, what are you doing? You're selling that stuff for, that's the wrong stuff. You're selling it at the wrong price. But they were doing it on purpose to get their commission. You know, so that's dishonest. It's not professional, and it's not what you should be doing as a salesperson. So when a client really bonds with a relationship with you, I think when you get a good client, and I've had clients and they're still working with me, and I'm working with them 20 years, when people do that, there's something has built between the sales professional and the client. There is a relationship has built, which is built on honesty, integrity, and straightforwardness and knowledge. And I think those are the important things.
Thanks. I think a lot of us probably move careers, move jobs throughout our careers. That's kind of the nature of work now. It used to be you went into one job and you stayed in it for 40 years and then you retired, but it's not like that anymore. So I think a lot of people end up selling different products and services to different groups of customers at different stages in their career. So the qualities that you have as an individual become even more important because your customers are likely to change, your products are likely to change, your services are likely to change. And you can learn product knowledge, you can learn knowledge of the service that you're selling, you can learn the new company and the people and everything else. But really, your own internal resources are what it comes down to, in my opinion. I think salespeople need to have a really genuine desire to help their customers, because if it isn't genuine, that tends to show. I think they have to have a genuine desire to help. I think also they have to be naturally tenacious people. If you are in a sales role, you will hear the word no. That is what happens. You will hear, no matter how good you are, you will hear the word no. I've heard it a few times, you know, and you have to be able to pull yourself back up from that and say, okay, so let's get on to the next thing. So the tenaciousness and the resilience is really important as well. And I think also, you know, you have to like talking to people and being with people and listening to people, and you have to be able to kind of enjoy that aspect of the job as well. If there was ever a people profession, it's selling. It's all about the relationship with the other person. It's been mentioned already, the importance of listening, and you know, I was one of the people who started with the yellow pages on a phone and off you go, and that was my training. It was, there's your desk, there's your phone, there's the yellow pages, away you go. Oh, that's your target, by the way. And that was it. There wasn't even any product training. It was like you made it up as you went along, or learnt it as you went along. But one thing I would say about, we mentioned technology a little bit. Sorry to go off piste a tiny bit here, but one of the things that I feel is sort of is a disadvantage to some salespeople and business development people now, by virtue of all of the technology, is that maybe they're not as inclined to lift the phone and talk to people. I come from the old school where you didn't have anything else except a phone, so that was what you used, and then you went out to see the clients, and it was all, you know, building a relationship over the phone, building a relationship face to face, and those things worked brilliantly well. For me, lifting the phone and talking to my clients still works really well, and it's still my preferred mode of communication. And I try and instill that into the people I work with, much to their, I'm sure, amusement at times. But it really does make a difference, because if you email or you LinkedIn, that's great. It's a brilliant way to get information across. Does it build relationships? I don't think it does, I don't think it does. I think talking to people, building a relationship on the phone and then face-to-face is a much better way of going about it, So again, qualities of a salesperson, you've got to be willing to do that. You've got to be wanting to do that, wanting to speak to the people that you're dealing with. And generally also, I'll finish on this, the other thing is salespeople need to be naturally positive and enthusiastic. And we've heard a lot about mental health this evening. You do need to have a pretty positive mental attitude and at least understand how to improve it if you go into work and your attitude is frankly meh or worse. And often that happens, and it happens to all of us. We are human first and salespeople second, You've got to understand how you are as a human being and what makes you feel a bit better about things. And if you feel like not great. If you can get out of the office, walk around the block, do whatever it takes to sort of lift your mood a little bit, it makes a massive difference, and it makes that next call that wee bit easier, or the next presentation that wee bit easier. And it's understanding how you are as an individual, and that, that comes, I guess, with a little bit of time as well. But that natural positivity and enthusiasm and resilience is really important in sales.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would actually build on what Noel and what was just said there now, because one of the strange things over the last couple of years, particularly around, and I've seen about, as I've sat here, I've seen about 6 messages that people in this group have sent me on LinkedIn come through while I've been sitting here, and I've been reading them on my watch, so thank you to whoever's done that. But the other part is...
You've got a watch with LinkedIn? Funny joke, big guy.
No, I'm just still annoyed you haven't come in your togs. I was expecting that.
Got the middle.
Superman. I digress. So really, the interesting thing that's happened over the last few years is it's so easy to do the first 80 metres of the race now. Identifying the buyer, working out within an org chart who the economic buyer is versus the tire kickers. It's so easy to do that now. Anyone could do it in 15 minutes using 3 different platforms. But the reality is that the last 20 metres of the 100-metre race hasn't changed. It's still relationship development. It's still putting together proper proposals. It's still finding those 3 or 4 stakeholders or champions within an organisation that are going to support your bid. So that hasn't changed at all. And I think one of the issues that we have now is that so many people get so much, even if you look at the training that's on offer now, if I see one more LinkedIn training program, I'll go mad. It's social media. Someone tried to get me to go to a training course last week on something called TikTok. I don't even want to know what that is. Okay, but there's another thing, and then next month there'll be something else, and it'll be the life-changing platform that's going to make it easy. But I know if someone really wanted to contact me, there's probably 6 different mediums on the public platform where they could contact me within 15 minutes, and it's not difficult to do. The problem is, how do you actually close the piece of business after that? And that hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. And that's the part where, I asked you before this event, there was a gentleman who I thought was going to be here tonight called Collie Graham, and he did the first ever training course I ever did when I was 18, and he's still doing the same training course now, and it's still the most relevant training course that I've ever been on, because most of it was do the simple things. So if you send someone a note saying you're going to follow them up with a phone call tomorrow, do you know what? It would be a really good idea if you did that. Instead of just sending the email hoping they're going to respond to you and then never contact them again. And that's a huge issue, and that's one thing I'll end on now, because the problem that we have now as organisations, and I don't know the demographics and size of the organisations within this, the biggest problem that I encounter with companies is wastage. With my clients, I have about 125 live clients now that I work with. Some of them are on business growth projects, some of them are on recovery projects, some of them is just general consultancy. But we find that salespeople now, particularly, I'm going to be really careful not to do any millennial bashing or anything like that, but what we find is the people who depend really heavily on social media have huge levels of wastage, because they'll maybe spend half an hour researching the right guy and then they do no follow-up. So if you've got 20 of those that you've researched on a day, there's 10 hours of your working day that you're not going to follow up with. and you're flushing them down the toilet. You do that over your working month, over your year, how many potential sales are just walking straight out the door? And frankly, if someone's received that message, they'll be pretty pissed off because they will actually probably wait on your call. They might, you get a lot of trash comes through your email now, but they might actually just wait on it. And I've done it in the past where I've waited on people and they don't call. Yeah. So, that's the big thing whereby the first 80 metres of the race is so easy now as salespeople. The last 20% has become even more important.
Yeah. It's led nicely on. I was going to ask you about the top 3 tips, but these guys have only give the tips, from listening to being honest to tenacity to actually doing what you're supposed to be doing and follow up. I was listening to a guy I like to listen to, Grant Cardone. Again, yes, I'm still learning. I'm in sales. I'm still learning, and I'm listening to his book about closing. And one of the things that he brought up was that everybody's a buyer. We put it into our heads. Okay, I'm going to go out to this meeting. He's not going to buy off me. He's not going to buy off me. I'm going to go to the meeting anyway, but he's not going to buy off me. Why are you going to the meeting? You need to go into that meeting knowing that that guy's going to buy off you. You're looking at his watch. You're looking at the shoes that he's wearing. You're seeing the car. Those are all closing decisions that person has made. So they are buyers. So you've got to think about that. And all the tips that have been given here are here to allow you to get into the right frame of mind to understand that people are going to buy off you. And if you take the tips and the hint that these guys have given you this evening, you will sell. And again, you've identified something there, and it's something that I've done time and time again when I first started in sales, is chasing the wrong people. If you're researching these companies, make sure you find the right person you're supposed to be talking to. Don't go and speak to purchasing when it's actually the CEO that makes the decisions, and that process takes a long time, a bit of a long time to get through. So what I want to do now, folks, is open the floor to questions. So is there anybody out there? Martin Gilchrist. So Martin, sorry, we don't have a mic. If you want to shout out your question.
Yes, my name is Martin Gilchrist. I'm here from Gilchrist & Co Chartered Accountants, and what we do is we look after professionals in independent practice. And we've been able over the last 10 years to grow a very successful and well-known practice using free social media tools and by going to network events. That's all we've done. Now we've reached a stage in our practice where we're ready to go an awful lot faster. And my question to the panel and yourself is, if I had £10,000 to invest in that kickstart for sales for Gilchrist & Co, a small business that wants to start to grow, what would be the best investment of that £5,000 to £10,000? Good
question.
Can I start?
Go ahead, Rosemary.
The first thing I would say to you, Martin, is you might not need to spend money initially. I've got my hands so to remind me that I work on an awful lot of free programs myself and many other mentors with different specialisms. So just to make you aware that, for example, if you are Belfast City Council based, and I think you are, the Think, Do, Be programme is still available for any Belfast-based businesses. Now, I'm also conscious that some of you are not going to be business owners, but if you can take the information back to the owner-manager of the businesses that you're working for, you can get free advice information to look at sales plans, marketing plans, production improvements, or whatever it is pertinent to your business. So if you need information from me, I've got some handouts in my hand. I wanted to say that first. I'm going to leave that magic answer to some of the others because I'm not really quite sure.
Go ahead.
There's probably 2 answers to that, Martin. One's a business answer from myself. The other one would be a general answer. You did say there, and I've met you before as well, I know that. You did say there that you got customers through networking. When Kenny was talking about what's the top 3 tips, if you were pushed, what would be my top 3 tips for people in the room in terms of selling? My top 3 tips would be networking, networking, and networking. I do all of my business almost through networking. I use the social media pieces to find places to go to network, but the one bit of networking that really works is the face-to-face networking. So if you have been successful with a certain element of networking, what I would suggest is that you use the 10 grand to move up a gear into a different level of networking. So it may cost you money to go to a different type of event, whereas maybe you've been going to some free events. you might invest some of that money in going to more higher up events, if you like, where you get to meet CEOs and finance directors, etc., the sorts of guys you're looking for. So that would be one thing. Secondly, from a personal business point of view, if you were able to sit down and say, I'd want to be in front of the following 20 people because I think I could sell them what I've got, then give the money to me and I'll put them in front of you.
Very well done. Anybody else?
Well, obviously, since I'm the head of business development with Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce, Noel has set that up very nicely. We run an enormous amount of networking events,
folks,
of a very high quality, I may say. So if you would like to invest in membership with the Chamber or upgrading membership level of the Chamber, we will happily speak to you. My team are all here, and no doubt they will come and find you at the end of this. But networking is undoubtedly a brilliant way of increasing your business. It's also a great way of increasing the profile of your company. I would talk to a lot of our members about this idea of boots on the ground. Be visible. Make your company visible at events. Be there. You know, if you're not there, nobody's going to remember you. You know, if you're there, there's a chance they are going to remember you. So it's about that visibility as well. The Northern Ireland business community is extraordinarily small. I recognise many of the faces in the room. I know a lot of you recognise me and members of the Chamber team. It's a small, small group of people. So if you can get out there and get yourself well known, that's a tremendous way to start. I think outside of that, in terms of investing in a sales function for your business, it's still maybe a little early. It seems like you've done an awful lot of really good stuff without that. I would maybe upgrade the networking and possibly, you know, maybe build on your social media success, see what has worked, and should you invest a little more in maybe increasing and amplifying that. Also just general brand awareness. Keep pushing your brand out on every channel you possibly can. The better known your organisation. And in terms of Northern Ireland also, being associated as the face of your organisation is also very important. You know, if you think of organisations that you know, you probably a face comes into your mind because there's someone in that organisation who's kind of the face of, and that's a really important thing as well, because people here like to know who they're dealing with. That's our mindset in Northern Ireland. We are still quite parochial. We like to know who we're dealing with. So I would suggest do a bit more of that as well.
One thing I'll add into that networking piece for you is you have to be careful with the events you go to as well. You can't go to every single event. You know, if you are an SME, an independent business owner, there's only one of you. You can't go to all of them. If you are a business owner and you have multiple salespeople, okay, yes, but again, it puts your selling time down a little bit as well. So select the events you want to go to. Be very cautious and particular about the events to sell your people to, or you send your salespeople to. Make sure you get your people to do the research about the event or the networking group that they're going to, that the right decision makers are in that room. Because if you're sending your sales staff or you're going to the event, and it's a waste of time. You've literally wasted your time. So do invest your money wisely as well. Declan, I'll let you go ahead.
Just one thing I would say to build on top, again, some great advice that's come out there, has been, as you've said yourself, Martin, you guys have done a phenomenal job. And if anyone doesn't actually know what Gilchrist & Co. has done to build their presence, I would recommend you do a bit of research online to see some of the practical groups that they've got involved with. And that's not a plug for his practice, it's actually a plug for the work that he's done, because he doesn't do any accountancy work. He's always at these things. So, you know, but one thing I would say, and this is me harping back to my days as a chartered marketer, but when I was a chartered marketer, Facebook hadn't been invented yet, so it's slightly dated, is when you find something that works well for you, do more of it. I mean, some things in sales are quite complicated. It is a profession. You do have to learn your trade. However, when you find something that works, do more of that thing and do less of the things that don't work. Some people like to complicate things. That's one thing that's really simple. So if you have found you have grown your business exponentially by networking and by doing smart social media, find some resource, your £10,000, put it into finding someone that can help you do that, to let you spend more time doing the things that has brought you business. I know a lot of people who experiment on doing new experimental things because it's going to be the next great thing, when really the actual results would have been a lot better had you just doubled down on what you were great at already.
Perfect. So I want to take one more question from the audience. James, go ahead, James, stand up and give us a shout out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Perry, and first of all, I want to say really well done, Kenneth. We're putting on a really good evening, and thanks very much to the speakers for some really great hours. There's a saying that I'm coming across now on social media that trust is the new currency. Has anybody heard of that? So I just want to know, what are your top tips or to build trust with some potential client you just met?
Good question. Who wants to go? We'll take two of the guest panelists because we're short in time now.
I think I'll have a look at this. A lot of my work is with government agencies. So I do a lot of work directly with senior representatives of government agencies who are wanting to run trade missions in different parts of the world. So it's very public, because if they screw that job up, it ends up in the papers. It's very delicate because all of the companies who are taking part are investing time, money, effort, so it's incredibly embarrassing if it goes wrong. And I'm a relatively new business in my own right. I've been in the industry for 10, 12 years, but I'm relatively new as my own business. So much effort has to go into developing trust at the start of the sales funnel. We use tons of referrals. Referrals are massive. When I work with clients in America who are state agencies, I get them to have dinner with representatives of other state agencies that I've worked with, so as they can vouch for the work that we've done. I have clients who are I have about 15 or 20 clients who are on regular rotation who will provide meaningful testimonials for the work that we've done for them. And the other part of it is to spend the time early in meetings. Don't try and push. Don't try and be aggressive. Don't try to hard sell. Be very honest about what you can do, also what you can't do. And then see where that proposition matches in with the client. And you can qualify yourself in or out of the business very quickly. And I find that I actually qualify myself out of more business than I actually qualify myself into, because as you alluded to in your last point, you have limited resources, you've got a limited team, and if you don't think that a contract that you take on you will smash out of the park and it will be an example you would want to use as a case study, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosemary.
As a one-woman band, if you like, one person in business for 17 years, James, it's been essential, obviously, to build trust with clients straight away. Not only the people who give me the work, but the clients that I work with. As I say, a couple of them are in the room, and I can't speak for them. But I think what has stood me in good stead is I'm fairly well an open book. And just as has been said, I would talk myself out of business. So if I don't think I'm the right person for the job or for the role, I'll say, look, it's not me you need to talk to. It's, it's James or, it's Valerie. And I think what happens is that comes back to you tenfold. So it's about that integrity. It's about building trust and honesty. But going back again, I honestly do believe that whether it's, you're an SME or you're a salesperson, it's the understanding your market. Market research to me is the essence, it's the foundation on which a business is built. So I think really learning about your customer, and it's by showing that interest that people do see your integrity and learn to trust who you are. And of course, testimonials, again, do ask for testimonials if you're self-employed, but people are then able to see what you've done before, and hopefully that gets you the business. But just building relationships, building trust, as I say, being open with people, that would be what I would suggest.
Valerie, go ahead quickly. Yep.
Sorry, I never can hold my own pace. But I just want to say, in terms of trust, one of the critical things that it has been alluded to is do what you said you were going to do. Do what you said you were going to do. If you said you were going to email. If you said you were going to phone. But do what you said you were going to do. Because I would say about 70% of the time, people don't. So only by doing that, you will set yourself apart in terms of trustworthiness and integrity, and that is really important. And a really old adage, the more mature people in the room will have heard this before, but under promise and over deliver. Manage expectations. Tell your client you can do X when you know you can do Y, and then wow them with it. These old, it's been talked about how the sales training of many years ago is still valid, and those truths are the same today as they ever were. So that's all I would say is do what you said you were going to do, under promise and over deliver, and act with integrity. Try to help people if you can. If you can connect someone with someone else that will help their business and you get nothing out of it, do it. It will come back tenfold to you. I'm a great believer in karma, and it will come back to you for sure.
Perfect. So, folks, that wraps up the guest panel discussion. Hopefully, you have got an insight into what I would class as the sales titans, which is what this is all about. One thing that I would reiterate from all of this is that the basics hasn't changed, folks. What's changed is new technology. You know, we are led to believe that these new technologies will help us sell more, and they do if you use them properly, but they are tools. They're not there to control your life and control your business. So pump a little bit of energy into the social media, into the technology, but pump more energy into yourselves. You guys are the ones that are going to close the deals, yeah? It's not the technology, it's you guys. So if we would just give the panel a round of applause, please. Thank you. Guys, if you just want to have a seat over there.